Let us see what is GraphQL and what are the benefits of using GraphQL. GraphQL is a query language for the APIs. We have heard about query languages for databases, right? We can say select star from employee table, select star from employee where ID is equal to 1 to 3, like that. So what is a query language for APIs? Before we discuss that one, let us see how a REST API works. In REST API, from client side, we will request server that I need company details for company with the ID 1. In the server, there will be a microservice. It will go and fetch the data from the repository and send back the whole company details. That means it will have company details, branch details, so many other details. Similar way, if you are taking the branch details, there will be an endpoint exposed in the server side from a microservice, branch microservice. So I am saying that I need branch details for the branch ID 1. Those details will be pulled. Branch details may have the parent company and other details. What you can see here is one endpoint is exposed. It is pulling all the information and sending it to the client. But here, client may need only the branch name or branch name and state. Client has no choice to mention what he needs from the API. That means he doesn't have any option to query the result of the API in the server side. In the client side, you can do. That means the whole data is sent over the network to the client side, and we are going to write the code to filter out whatever we don't need. In the case of GraphQL, that limitation is removed. Also, if I need only the branch name from the output, if I want to set such a requirement in the REST API, I need to expose one more endpoint, right? There I might say branch slim /1, that means slim data that need to be sent back. There, branch microservice take all the details from the database, then it will filter there and send only the branch name. Again, if I want another endpoint where branch name and the parent company ID are required, then again I need to expose another endpoint, right? So many endpoints will be required in the server side if we want to filter the data dynamically at the server side. This limitation is removed in the case of GraphQL. In the case of GraphQL, client will send a request to server. It will be one endpoint. In that, few details also client can send. Here it says that it's the branch details it needs, and only branch with ID 1 need to be pulled, and from there only branch name I need, nothing else. So this information will be sent to server side. Server will have a branch microservice. There it will pull all the details from the repository, and GraphQL will filter the details as per the query information provided by the client and send only branch name to client side. That means over the network, only branch name goes to the client side. Again, if I need branch name and the state name, here I'll mention branch name. Next line, I'll say state. So those details will be filtered and sent from the server side. There's no change required in the server side at all. Any queries we can send from the client side to server side. Only requirement is whatever we are pulling from the microservice, that should have that field. Now let us see how GraphQL works. The most important part of GraphQL is GraphQL schema. This schema we will register in the server side. Here you can see the type query. There some details we have provided. Here what we say is what all queries we can get from the client side. Here one of the queries company with an argument ID and its output expected is company object. Next one, company list. Here it expects an array of companies. The square bracket means the array. Then the same way, a query on branch will come with the argument branch ID and its output is branch what is expected. Then type mutation. Query means get data from the server, right? We'll give some ID or we may not give, we'll just say what we need and get the details from the server. Mutation means we want to add company to the server. That means we are filling a form in the client side and we are sending it to the server side. Server will persist it. In that case, we can use mutation. Mutation will have argument that will be objects that need to be sent to the server side. Here, the object is company input. When we say object, that object should be defined in the schema. We have used company type we are mentioning that will have which all fields that has, that also is mentioned here. Same a branch and the company input. There are so many more definitions, but here we are only looking at the bare minimum which is required. Rest of the things you can go through the document and understand it easily. There are few root operation types. One we have seen, the query is given here, the mutation, then the subscription. Subscription is nothing but it is a asynchronous mode of execution in the server side. That means we will give a query, it will execute in the server in asynchronous mode. How GraphQL handles the query? Let us see that. Client will send a query. Here it's asking company information to company microservice. Then what that service has to do is it has to read the schema and they pass the schema and register. Schema says what all types of operations are available and what are the objects. So here company is mentioned. Company query, we are saying that company query with ID as the argument will come in. Its output is company and what are the fields for the company, right? Here the root operation type is query. Then the query field is company. Then the data fetcher or solver function. Data fetcher means this function is going to do all the operations of retrieving from the database or whatever we want to do. Our custom code will be written into the data fetcher. So how to fetch this company information, that's what we are saying. So these three need to be bundled together. So these will be bundled and attached to a runtime wiring. When client send the company, it will check the query, company is there, it is its output is company and is the argument is ID. Those informations with, if this information comes, what the data fetcher function need to be called, that will be mentioned in the data fetcher, and GraphQL will go and call that function, get the result, and it will execute the operation, get the company details and query and filter the result with the required fields. Here only name and state are asked. So from the output, it may have all the company details. From there, only name and state will be sent to the client side. This is how a GraphQL works. In the other videos, we will see how to use GraphQL in a Java application.